UFC Fight Night. We got Hermansson versus Vettori. 11 fights on this card. Let's get right into it. We got 5 fights on the prelims. The main event of the prelims, I suppose, is Smolka versus Quiñonez on that. But let's talk about fight number 1. Let's get right into it. We have a heavyweight match here. We have Gian Villante versus Jake Collier. What do you think about this fight?
Okay. This is one of those fights where it's like the fans don't want to see this fight. Like, these guys are both not in shape. They both were literally in lower weight classes and just decided to stop cutting weight and just to make that heavyweight weight class. So that's why they're not in those lower weight classes. Like, Collier was a 185 pounder. And with Gian Villante, what was he? He was a 185 pounder as well.
He was a 205.
I believe he wasn't he? One of them. He was one of them. And now he's at 240, 245. So I'm not going to put much into this prediction because both of these guys are not taking this serious at this stage, at this point in their career. Looking at the information I have, Collier, I give him the wrestling, but the shape he's in, I don't think he can really do much of that. And even when he was in good shape, when he was in the smaller weight class, he did a takedown early rounds. He did some work at the top, but then usually he didn't continue the wrestling. Like, he didn't spam it to win the fights. Villante, I think, has the striking edge.
I agree.
I think he's the all-around better fighter here. So I'm going to have to take Villante. I'll make it quick on this one because I wouldn't put bets on either fighter. Both of these guys, to me, are not taking the sport serious at this point in their career. But based on their last performance, Villante, he lost. He got submitted by Green. A fight he was winning.
Yeah,
the fight he was winning, right? So Collier, though, he just got embarrassed by Aspinall. Like, he literally just, I don't know why he came back in that shape. Like, what's his real reason for fighting at this point in his career? He's not even in shape. I got to go Villante. I think he has more left, or he's shown me more, so I feel more comfortable with him.
yeah, I agree with that. I'll echo that message. I think Villante just has the striking edge, and I don't see this fight going to the ground. I think both fighters are going to kind of approach the fight in the same way, but something to note about Collier, when he gets hit, he immediately turtles up. He can't handle the power that's in that heavyweight division, like you mentioned, coming up from a middleweight at one point in his career. So again, don't put too much into this fight at all. But if you do have to go with a winner, I think Gian Villante is the pretty comfortable winner. But like we're saying, beware with this fight. 2 fighters that are not taking it seriously, and when that's the situation, ultimately anything can happen. But skill-wise, Gian Villante should win that fight. So let's get right into fight number 2. In that case, now this one is a pretty good fight, a pretty interesting fight. We have Ilia Topuria versus Damon Jackson. When I think about Damon Jackson, I think about pretty decent boxing, more of a brawling style with his striking, some pretty decent combinations in his strike, and has some pop in his punches. Likes to start the fights pretty fast as well, and that can look good in the eyes of the judges and the eyes of the fans. Obviously, there's no fans in attendance, but it can look good from a scoring perspective. What I did notice about him as well, he has a ton of heart, seems to have a ton of cardio. I like his aggressiveness, like I mentioned, and that right hook specifically is pretty solid with him when it comes to his stand-up. But I did notice he has kind of a suspect takedown defense, although he'll go for the submission attempts with it. So he's very, very knowledgeable, so to speak, when he's on his back. Some grappling ability on the ground as well, some wrestling shown in his previous fights as well. But yeah, that takedown defense is a little bit suspect for me. And when I compare that to Topuria, I mean, very impressive debut. He beat Yusuf Zalal, who of course had a lot of momentum going for him in the UFC at that time. That was only a few months ago, if I'm not mistaken. Topuria shows me really, really good boxing. I like his overhand right. He throws a lot of power into it. The combinations seem pretty crisp. He seems to throw them pretty often as well. And I like the way that he cuts the ring off. He kind of gives you a constant pressure. He cuts the ring off pretty good as well. And I spoke about Damon Jackson's suspect takedown defense. Wrestling is Topuria's game. He has that. I think it's a Greco-Roman background, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it's him or if it's or if it's his family, but I mean, yeah, I like his wrestling advantage in this one. I actually do like his striking advantage in this one as well. I think there might be some grappling opportunities for Damon Jackson, but I mean, we saw Damon Jackson get handled by someone who was better on the ground than him in the Mirzad Bektic fight. I don't know if you remember that one. Jackson ended up winning that fight, but there were times where Bektic looked pretty in control. So I think Topuria is going to have kind of the same approach to winning the fight. I think he matches him on the feet. I think he has that momentum coming off of a win versus Yusuf Zalal. And I kind of think both fighters are hungry, but I think Topuria is going to be the one to kind of keep that undefeated record. But this is going to be a really good fight.
I agree. I actually have some notes on this one, believe it or not. I actually have some notes on a fight here because I was really looking forward to this one. Damon Jackson, he's been in the UFC before. Good BJJ, good submissions, very strong if he gets on top. And one thing you missed. He's really big for that division. Or did you say that already? He's really big.
You're right.
Saw the weigh-in. He's so big for that division, and of course he has the experience, right? So, but again, as you mentioned, he does give up takedowns. Where Ilia, as you mentioned, you liked his wrestling. He's Georgian, so he has that Georgia wrestling style. He's from the same country as Marab. There's a couple more Georgian fighters that have been coming into the UFC in the last couple of years, and the majority of them have that strong wrestling base. I like Ilia's cardio. It holds up. He has the youth on his side as well. I see the fight can go one of two ways. Topuria keeps it on the feet, wins the fight with his striking. I can also see Topuria taking this fight to the ground, winning the fight round by round. I can even see him getting a finish. I can even see him getting a submission. Topuria has like 6, I believe, finishes on his record, so he's definitely looking to finish the fight. So he's definitely a pick I like. He's actually a strong pick for me. I like Ilia Topuria to get it done.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with that. Jackson definitely is a quality opponent, though, and again, like you said, this is going to be a pretty interesting fight. A pretty interesting fight, and
Jackson only 3 losses. I don't care about the competition. He's been around. He's been in the UFC before, so he's fought that high level. The guy, he's a good fighter. He knows how to win these fights. So at the end of the day, you could be losing the fight like his last fight and just catch that submission. So, but I think Ilia, smart enough, I think he can avoid the danger and get a unanimous or a finish.
I agree, and I do agree with the confidence level in that pick. I think it's just set up for Topuria to kind of win that one. But let's move on to fight number 3. In that case, if I'm not mistaken, this is a fight that we're gonna go in a different direction on with one another. We have Jimmy Flick versus Cody Durden. I see similar styles. I see similar strengths between these two fighters. I think they kind of give you that. I'm not going to say boxing wrestling combo, but I am going to say MMA striking with intention to take it to the ground. When I look at Flick, a bit more boxing in his stance comparatively. I see him being very active, very aggressive to his wrestling approach. The chain wrestling. We speak about that pretty often. He has 13 wins via submission. So that definitely is a threat for him at all times. And very active on the ground. I mean, he'll get the body lock. He'll change positions. He'll get tangled up on the ground to try to get a more favorable position on you. But I mean, like his opponent Durden, the stand-up is pretty basic. If we're thinking about his boxing defense, so to speak, he doesn't really move his head much. He uses that stand-up just enough to attempt that takedown. And I mean, like I said, he's willing to do all the work necessary to do it, whether it's on the cage, whether it's on the ground, whether it's on top, whether it's getting tangled up, whatever it needs to be. Durden, in opposition to that, like I said, I mean, his stand-up to me is not amazing either, but he likes to throw that calf kick from time to time. And his takedown approach is a bit more of a single leg type of style, at least from what I've noticed. And he also has kind of that chain wrestling approach to him as well. We're splitting decisions on this one, but I actually found this one just in general hard to call because the very similar strengths. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, from a betting point, it's to me it's a dogger pass. So because the thing about Flick, I think he's one of those guys that are like really, really good at that jujitsu where even if you're a high level wrestler, he's able to make you look dumb on the ground. Like he made his last opponent, who was a high level wrestler or a collegiate wrestler, he made him look pretty dumb on the ground. The difference in this fight, though, the reason I'm going with Durden, to me, it's a dogger pass. I think Flick should win this fight. Like, he should get this to the ground at least once and win the fight. But I think Durden can keep this on the feet. I think he should be able to keep this standing. If Durden decides he wants to grapple, I think Durden has that explosive wrestling to take Flick on the ground. I think he can kind of dictate where the fight goes. Durden's coming down from 135, so he's going to be the bigger guy, the stronger guy. To me, yeah, they both don't really have much striking. Flick just really flicks the kicks and in the legs or the stomach area. He doesn't really throw the punches a lot. Durden kind of swings, he kind of brawls, but he has more of an MMA approach to it. I think it's going to be more of an effective approach than Flick striking, and I think Durden has some pop. I think he has some finishes that are not subs on his record. I don't think Flick has any finishes by strikes or knockout or anything like that. So Flick definitely is looking to take this to the ground, definitely looking to get a submission and another thing I'm worried about with my guy Durden is cardio. So he may have cardio issues, right? I watched this fight versus Gutierrez, Chris Gutierrez, but that guy is amazing. That guy he's like a ninja with his kicks, right? And it looks like he's getting tired, or it could be that those leg kicks slowed him down to that kind of mess with his shot when he went in for the takedowns. Exactly. Or he was gassed, right? So I don't know if it's really he has that bad of a cardio, or was his leg really that messed up to really slow his shots. But I'm going to take Durden in a fight that I wouldn't bet if I had to fight. There's other fights that I think are better fights to pick. But to me, this is a dogger pass, and I actually think Durden has two paths to victory here. So I'm going to take Durden to win this fight.
Yeah, I agree from a betting perspective that it would be a dog or pass for sure. I guess I am going to make my official pick, Jimmy Flick, on this one. Like you said as well, he should win, but this is not a fight where there's any real sort of confidence level in that pick. But I am going to go with Jimmy Flick on my official one there, just to officially make that a split decision. Let's move on to fight number 4 on the prelims. We have Matt Wiman versus Jordan Leavitt, or is it Leavitt? Mispronouncing that there. But was this one moved to the main card? No, this is still on the undercard, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, this is still on the undercard. So we have Matt Wiman versus Jordan Leavitt. I mean, what can I say about this one? This one, if I'm not mistaken, I think Leavitt is a very big favorite on this. Let me just double check that here. Yeah, Leavitt's a pretty big favorite on this. I am going to say don't really make this as confident as a pick as Vegas might make it seem. I mean, when we look at Tapology, we see Leavitt, I think it was at 95% the last time I checked, 93% with 1,600 votes. Not to say Wiman is good per se at this point in his career. I mean, he fights pretty tall. He keeps his hands pretty low. He fights very square. I mean, he kind of looks like a mummy in his stand-up approach. And he hasn't shown me anything else, not recently at least. I've seen wrestlers keep him on the ground. I've seen people outstrike him. He does throw.
I look at this fight. I think it's an easy one. I think Leavitt's going to deal with him. I think he's going to school him. I actually was a bit concerned because I really wasn't high on Leavitt's striking ability. And then I did some more watching of Leavitt to see how he fights, right? And he's fighting all these guys that are much bigger, and he's somehow getting the fights to the ground.
Yes.
Guys that are physically stronger, somehow doing work on the floor. So somehow he's doing it. Then when I saw the weigh-in today with Matt Wiman, he looked either the same size or bigger than Wiman. And to me, that tells me Leavitt's going to kill this guy because Leavitt fights a lot of these bigger, stronger, ripped rip their fighters, if that's a word, but fighters in much better shape and he just ragdolls them on the ground. So I think he's just going to ragdoll Wiman. I think he has the better wrestling, the better grappling. Wiman may have the striking, but I got to go with Leavitt. I think it's an easy one. I think this is something you can put on a couple of your parlays. I think at this point, it's a confident pick for me. Leavitt.
I can definitely see some parlay action with this one. I mean, like you said, the path is as clear as day. He's done it in all of his fights pretty much. He's undefeated, of course. Age is going to be a key factor in this. I mean, we're talking about a fighter who's not even in their prime yet at 25 years old versus a fighter who is very much out of his prime at 37 years old. And again, like I've said, we've seen people keep Wiman on the ground. So there's no reason to believe that Leavitt won't be able to do the same thing. I guess it's just as confident as I can feel about this is as weary as I can feel about a fighter I'm not particularly high on. And I guess
of course, one of those, sorry to cut you off. It's one of those guys from Contender Series too, right? So you can't really put so much faith on those Contender Series fighters, like that Kolsky guy a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
So you never know. They can look good on Contender Series or against these lower level guys. Once they get to the UFC, it's a rude awakening, right? So I definitely hear what you're saying there. But I don't think Wiman has anything here. I think another fact I see on the screen: 3.53 takedowns. Is what Leavitt, and he's not going to gas, so he can do this the whole 3 rounds if he has to. But he's looking to finish Wiman in the first or second round.
And I think he just might be able to do that. I really do. Let's move on then to the final fight of the prelims. We have Luis Smolka versus Jose Alberto Quiñonez. Now this one's going to be a pretty interesting fight, a pretty decent fight here. Luis Smolka, I mean, ground specialist, likes to throw punches to the body. I've noticed that being a very particular approach to his game, and a lot of people aren't prepared for that. He does hit quite a few people with that punch to the body, so good for him on that. Likes to throw the kicks to the body as well. I've seen him just kind of stay pretty active in these rounds. He has pretty good cardio, some chain wrestling ability, relentless at times in terms of actually landing that takedown. But I've noticed going back to his striking for a bit, he does get pretty predictable, pretty prone to the leg kick, doesn't really check them from what I've seen. Counter strikers kind of always land on him. And we talk about somebody who's a ground specialist. We see this quite often with them. Once they learn a little bit of stand-up, they seem to fall in love with it. And as a result, I personally don't see Luis Smolka bringing this fight to the ground actively, or bringing really any of his fights to the ground actively at this point. When we think about Quiñonez, I mean, he's a switch stance fighter, kickboxer, pretty active feet, decent feints, trying to set up the stand-up, decent inside calf kick as well. I do like his grappling. I do like his wrestling. Pretty active in top position, and cardio doesn't seem to be really much of an issue as well. This one's interesting though, because I would say Quiñonez is probably technically the better fighter, or maybe at least technically better in the stand-up. But as I said, Smolka falling in love with his stand-up, he's sort of developed this style that potentially wins rounds for him, right? He seems to put the pressure on the fighter. He seems to kind of rough them up a bit. He can possibly use that takedown to score some points if it lands in the right moments. Because I did notice that Quiñonez fights pretty tall, and he uses a lot of kicks. So you never know if Smolka can kind of catch that or use that as an entry point for a takedown. I'm not confident in this pick. I think this fight can very much go either way. But I would say you put a gun to my head and ask me who I'm picking as a winner. I'm picking Luis Smolka on this one.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like, this fight is literally a 50-50. When they were booked recently and I had to make a pick, I actually was on Quiñonez. Then I looked into the fight a bit more. I still think it's a 50-50 fight. But Smolka, to me, in the last couple of fights, he kind of changed his approach. Like, he literally just attacks that body so much, and then the fighters eventually can't block their face, and he's hitting the face, and then he's hitting the body. Even against Casey Kenny, a fighter I think is one of the best guys coming up now. He fought Kenny. Like, I was worried. I had money on Kenny on a lock ticket. I put big money on it. Kenny won the fight, but until Kenny got that finish, Smolka had me worried. I didn't think Smolka could do that to Casey Kenny. I didn't think he could land 25 or so body shots on Casey Kenny in the first round. Like, that's how many body shots. So this guy's he's getting better. I think Quiñonez could win this fight. I think Smolka could win this fight. But again, like you said, if I have to pick, gun to my head, I'll take. No, I'm gonna still stick with my guy Quiñonez. I know I flipped on that, but the reason I'm gonna go with Quiñonez, I think he's more well-rounded.
Yes.
I do think Smolka's smarter now, and this is gonna be my thoughts from the last time they were booked. So I know Smolka has the IQ now. He's going for the body. He's fighting a lot smarter now. He doesn't have the jiu-jitsu edge in his back pocket. But I think Quiñonez has been there. He's fought pretty decent competition. Smolka isn't, again, a dynamic striker that can really trouble Quiñonez like on the feet that much. I think Quiñonez can fight him on the feet. I think as the fight goes on to the second, third round, I think Quiñonez would kind of take over the fight at that point. So I think the first round may be a little close either way, but I think as the fight goes on, Quiñonez is just going to find his range, get his kicks going, body kick, and then I think Smolka's going to walk into some jabs. He kind of leave himself open a bit with the striking in the boxing area. So I know I was going to say Smolka, but I did say it was 50-50, but I was going off the IQ. But when I really break it down and really think about it, I like Quiñonez in this spot, but I wouldn't really – yeah, it's a dog, so dog or pass. So I would take him here. I would actually take Quiñonez here on an underdog pick here.
Yeah, this is a tough one. This is very much a 50-50 fight, like you said. I mean, even me picking Smolka, this is not a confident pick. So, again, beware with that fight as well. You are gambling on that fight. This is not sort of a wise investment to put on a parlay ticket or to put on something that you're putting a little bit more money on, but on a ticket that is to some degree a long shot ticket, I'm willing to put either one of these fighters on there because either one of them truly can win the fight. So, let's wrap up the prelims there. Definitely take a look at our main card video as well. Do we want to give them some prelim picks in Vegas?
Yeah, what do you got?
Take a look here. What do we got? Smolka Quiñonez. We're leaving that one alone. I do like
Ilia Topuria and Jordan Leavitt for sure.
Yes.
That's for sure. I would actually, I would take that for sure. I know it's not paying the most, but I would definitely take that if you're just looking for a win on the parlay.
I think that's
I'm sorry, on the prelim. I'm sorry.
And that win is almost a double up, right? $100 will get you $175 in winnings or $75 in profit. And then you want to use that profit on the main card or use it for whatever else you got to use it for. So, yeah, I think these are probably the two best picks for the prelims. These are probably your two best Vegas money situations from a betting perspective. I do agree with that. But we got some more fights to call. So let's end it off at that. Prelims, UFC Fight Night, Hermansson versus Vettori. Stay tuned for our main card video.